This video is predicting that the Denver Broncos will beat the Seattle Seahawks in this year's NFL Super Bowl on February 8th, 2026. This video is being recorded prior to the semifinals, the AFC and NFC championship games. The date that this video is posted on the social media platform you are watching it on proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right, this introduction of this video here is the same as the other video. If you've already watched the other video, you could skip ahead just a few minutes or something. I think it's about 9 minutes or so. But, watch it again if you have already. Anyway, after this introduction, we'll get into new information for how it is known ahead of time that the Broncos will beat the Seattle Seahawks in this year's Super Bowl. All right, welcome. This video is predicting that the Denver Broncos will beat the Seattle Seahawks in the 2026 Super Bowl. This prediction, this video, is being produced prior to the AFC and NFC championship games. For those that don't know football, it means that this video is being produced prior to the semifinals. So there are 4 teams left in the playoffs. The Broncos and Seahawks are 2 of the 4 teams. It is predicted that each of these teams will beat their opponents in the semifinals and then play each other in the finals, which is the Super Bowl, and then the Denver Broncos will win. Okay, so that's a prediction for 3 outcomes of games here being made in one prediction, which is that the Denver Broncos will beat the Seattle Seahawks in this year's Super Bowl. As we can see here, this email was composed on January 19th. So this is before the championship games, the semifinals on the 25th. I think it's the 24th and 25th. Or maybe it's just the 25th, actually. Okay, so we can see here, January 19th. So the video also that you are watching on the social media platform you are watching it on, the post date proves this prediction is being made ahead of time. The purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is for a few main purposes. Number 1, it is to prove that God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections is being explained on this channel. It is also for the purpose, this prediction that is from God, to prove that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God, as opposed to any other type of God. There are many people today that think that this word God can apply to anything and all religions lead to the same destination, etc. It's not correct, and this prediction will prove this. And also, this prediction will prove the controversial things that I am saying in this video, including what I have just said. And I know far better than anyone, and you, the reason and purpose for this prediction. That is from God. I know far better than you the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction. And it is to prove the things that I am saying. And there is no debate regarding the controversial things that I'll be explaining. Now, the agnostic atheist will say, well, there's 4 teams left. It was quite possible that the Broncos and Seahawks would meet each other in the Super Bowl and the Broncos would win. That's not that big of a deal of a prediction, and that would be correct. That's true. But the reasons for this prediction and how it is known, the reasons that I will be explaining in this video, and I may make 2 videos. I might divide this into a couple of videos. The reasons for how this is known ahead of time are the proof that this is from God. No human being is capable of concocting these reasons in their own imagination. No person is that creative, as you will see. And if you don't see this, I am sorry for you, but you are a fool. But you are a fool by choice. And I know why you don't. And I understand where you're coming from, and I know that choice. You do not want the righteous Christian God of the Bible to be the true God. And fair enough. That's the purpose of life, in fact, is to make that choice. This is the reason why we are created in God's image, which is why we have free will. And our free will is to make this choice as to whether or not we want the righteous Christian God of the Bible to be the true God or not. This is why God has partially hidden himself. But I am here to help you with this prediction. I'm here to help open your eyes to what you have been blinding yourself all of these years. And really, to be honest, there is no excuse for not knowing that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God. In fact, everyone knows this. There's no such thing as an atheist. Everyone knows. And even, well, I'll give you an example. Near-death experiences actually confirm this. People come back and they say, well, I just knew. I didn't need someone to stand in front of me and list out the things and the evidences and the explanation for God and all that. The spirit of that person just knew. And they knew that they had rejected God, right? Especially someone who is from a Christian or formerly Christian nation. They know what it's all about. Anyway, we'll get into subjects like that. Well, let me just add this. Contrary to what evangelical Christians will say, or most of them I should say, there are 3 camps. There are 3 places where people will be at after they die, not 2. It's not binary, heaven or hell. And also the evangelicals are not correct when they say there will be people that will be tortured forever in hell. No, of course not. And the agnostic atheist is correct in using that as justification for not believing, because obviously that would not be a good God. It is also contrary to the Bible. The Bible does not talk about a torturing forever of people. It, in fact, talks about a quote-unquote second death. Anyway, so there will be people that will die the second death. That's one camp. The 2 remaining camps are those that will pass from life to life and not go to the other place, the uncomfortable place. And the uncomfortableness of that place is different for each individual, depending on what they did and how they responded to God, etc. Okay, and then so there are the middlings. So this is the vast majority of people. The people that, for example, were born before Christ, the people, and not necessarily, there will be some that were born before Christ that passed from life to life. But what I'm saying is that there will be people in that camp, also people in our time that didn't have an opportunity or a full opportunity to receive the gospel. For example, people in many nations that are barely Christian evangelized, just for example. But when it comes to the Westerner, someone who is, for example, from North America, and they still have rejected God, especially if they are over the age of 20, because today the gospel has, in the generation Y, Z, you would call it, they've barely received the gospel like people in other countries now, right? Anyway, you get my point. The one's judgment is commensurate with the amount of light and truth that that person was exposed to in their life. So be warned. if you are, for example, a baby boomer from the West, and you have rejected God and you are still an agnostic atheist, even though the evidence, including scientific evidence, because of course materialism is a far long ago outdated ideology. I mean, even early 20th century science disproved the 19th century idea of materialism. Anyway, if you have succumbed to that propaganda of materialism, well, you're being warned, and that's what this video is for. Let's get into these reasons, which you will clearly see are from God, and if you can't see that, I don't know what to say to you, but you will see no one is creative enough. These explanations will be amazing, and no one is creative enough to have concocted this of their own self. All right, I have another astounding reason for knowing that the Denver Broncos will win this year's Super Bowl in San Francisco. And this is truly amazing because, again, the fact that it's being played in San Francisco is pointing to Pope Francis, the Antichrist, who will ride the white horse as described in Bible prophecy. The Broncos being the white horse team. And the popes are known for riding their popemobiles. It just so happens that the very first popemobile, the proto-popemobile that was used when Pope John Paul II visited America, that was used to shuttle around the Pope in the stadiums in New York City. It was a Ford Bronco, the color of which was Wimbledon white. The first popemobile is a white Bronco that he rides on, sits on top of, or rather stands or whatever. This first popemobile, okay? How does this become a prophetic sign that we can pinpoint precisely to confirm that this is what is being pointed to through this Super Bowl? Pope Francis and the popemobile, him metaphorically riding the white horse. How can we prove this? I'm going to explain how we prove this. It is absolutely astounding. Stay tuned. If you are wondering at this point how in the world Pope Francis could be the Antichrist, that is a subject for another video, but it is being predicted, well, I should say it is known, it is a fact to myself and those that are my close brothers here that worked with me, that Pope Francis will be resurrected from the dead in April of 2029 through demonic power, through demons pretending to be aliens who will declare Pope Francis the ambassador for the aliens of the world. Okay, so anyway, Pope Francis is the Antichrist, the first of the two Antichrists. And in the book of Revelation, chapter 6, this Antichrist rides a white horse. For those that believe that it is Christ that is riding that white horse, they are also correct. Both is true. It is a metaphor. All right. Now, the term popemobile, let's get into this. So we have this article here regarding this auctioning off of this article here is actually an article from this website, which is derived, the article is derived from, or is, derived from another article from the New York Times. It's regarding this first popemobile of Pope John Paul, okay? So the term popemobile originated from John Paul II's ride in a white Ford Bronco. This is the reason why for so many exclamation marks is because this discovery of this article and this connection came after it was discovered and learned with 100% certainty that the Denver Broncos would win this Super Bowl in San Francisco because Pope Francis is the Antichrist that rides the white horse. This was discovered afterwards. So this is like an amazing confirmation, and that's why the exclamation marks here. From the article, quote, Bronco Pope Francis Center, first edition. So this is the name being given to this customized Ford Bronco that's being auctioned off for charity for this Pope Francis Center. And I believe it is in Chicago. For good reason, because the second of the two Antichrists, the American Antichrist, is from Chicago, the 44th president, Barack Obama, who gets his power from the first Antichrist, as Bible prophecy says. Okay, now this article here is from the auction website. This is the auctioneer's website that auctioned this vehicle for the Pope Francis Center. This Ford Bronco, I should say this white Bronco for the Pope Francis Center. Obviously, what we are going to ultimately get to here is the date of the auction, and I will show how it connects to the date of the Super Bowl, and that will prove everything. Let's get there, though. So, the Bronco 66, because the original, okay, so get this. The original Bronco is 1966, which, of course, hints at 666, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy, who again rides the white horse in Bible prophecy, hence why the first Bronco was in 66. Can you believe that? The Bronco 66 is a one-off 2021 first edition model. So this is just a description from the auctioneer's website. It's your typical description of what's being auctioned. Okay, so anyway, it's a Ford Bronco 66. They're using creative language here to, sell the product. So it's a one-off 2021 first edition. In other words, it's a customized remake, if you will, of the Bronco 66, the first one, okay? Created to honor the birth of the legendary SUV, the birth of it being 66, as in birth of the Antichrist. That's a metaphor that's repeated in the Bible. This is birth pains, birth end times. This customs theme was inspired by the 1966 Bronco, blending classic cues with modern touches to create a truly unique vehicle. The robust, fully loaded SUV is based on the 2021 first edition Bronco, which includes 7 GOAT modes, if you can believe that, for those that know what I'm talking about, because this 7 number is associated with the time of the Antichrist. The most central prophecy in the Bible, Daniel chapter 9, includes this period of the 70th 7, the period of the Antichrist in the end times. But God is using also this theme throughout his true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which, by the way, is only being explained on this channel, of GOAT, greatest of all time. The author here has chosen to use this GOAT, or rather, this is it seems to be official. This seems to be an official feature of this vehicle that's being auctioned, how it has 7 GOAT modes, whatever that means. But I know what it means to me, or prophetically. It hints at the GOAT Antichrist, which is why the theme of greatest of all time and God's signs. And modes, well, we've also had this because, for example, there was the beast mode, beast quake. Anyway, 7 of them, 7 GOAT modes. This is like this number in end times prophecy, right? Of the judgments, for example, the 7 trumpets, the 7 bowls, the 7 seals, which includes the first seal being the white horse. Oh, there you go. It's right there. The 7 seals. The first of the 7 seals is the white horse. That's why 7 GOAT modes. Also, goat is a beast. It's an animal, as is a horse. A domesticated animal, nonetheless, as is a horse. 7 seals, a white Bronco, the first seal being the white horse. Amazing. Okay, to go over any type of terrain. It is powered by a 2.7-liter V6 EcoBoost, that's Pope Francis right there, because he's Mr. Climate Change and Environmentalism, lie from Satan. Engine that delivers approximately 310 horsepower and 400 foot per pounds of torque. Okay, so this hints at Isaiah 31:4, this theme and God's signs that he's using to identify Pope Francis, for example, and the Antichrist, because Isaiah chapter 31 verse 4 is a description that leads to the Antichrist, the description of the Antichrist in this chapter. Okay, so that's why. This is amazing. This is a clear sign from God, a giveaway here. 310 horsepower and 400 feet per pounds of torque. Isaiah 31:4. Amazing. To a 10-speed automatic transmission and a 2-speed advanced 4x4 system, as in the 44th President Antichrist system that will be given to him when he takes power. The vehicle is equipped with a Haas system, including an independent front suspension system with Bilstein position-sensitive dampers. The rear suspension is a rugged 5-link solid Dana 44 axle. You could even say that Dana hints at Obama. 44 axle, of course, is the 44th president again here. Advanced technology systems, including trail turn assist, electronic stabilizer, bar disconnect, and front and rear locking differentials to navigate the wild. The Wimbledon white, as in the white horse, exterior. A color offered on the 1966 model, but not the current generation Bronco, is complemented by red painted stripes applied using the first edition patterning and highlighted by iconic silver elements, as in the horse named Silver from the Lone Ranger, a sign that God has previously used, such as grille and bumpers, and previously used to point to the Broncos winning the Super Bowl 38 days later, because the Broncos are from the 38th state. What am I talking about? Well, on New Year's Eve day, Trump had a party at the Mar-a-Lago in which him and his wife Melania entered the event to the theme song of the Lone Ranger, and Melania was wearing an all-silver, long, silvery, shiny dress, as in the silver horse in the Lone Ranger. Trump being the Lone Ranger. The media has referred to him as the Lone Ranger throughout the years in different ways. Now, the highlight of the event was a painting that was painted by a woman who is a speed painter who painted a painting of Jesus' face, a big one, in like 15 minutes or something. And then Trump auctioned, speaking of auction here, Trump auctioned the painting of Jesus' face. And at the end of the auction, when the price that was going was $2.75 million, Trump repeated, "Can I get 3? Is there a 3 million? Can we get 3 million for this painting of Jesus?" Which hinted at the 30 pieces of silver that Jesus was sold for. Okay, that day, January 1st, is 38 days to the Super Bowl. And the Broncos, the white horse Broncos, as in silver, the white horse and the Lone Ranger, are from the 38th state. And so that's why we have the silver elements on this white Ford Bronco. It features custom 18-inch wheels, which is 6+6+6, with matching finishes from Detroit steel wheels that look like the ones on a 1966 model, along with first edition badges created by K, as in Key, Automotive Graphics. The key is the symbolism for the Vatican. To commemorate the Pope Francis Center, as in the Vatican, where Pope Francis is entombed. The beneficiary charity and auction event. The Bronco is equipment with, that's not my typo, right? The Bronco is equipped with items from Ford Accessories and Ford Performance parts, including custom painted tube doors, rigid lights, Ford Performance exhaust, console vault, cargo box, safety kit, and off-road recovery kit. The Bronco is an extremely rare first edition model sold on 100% of hammer price to benefit Pope Francis Center. Again, the white Bronco and the Pope Francis Center and the popemobile, the first popemobile being a white Bronco. So this is tying this Bronco, the white Bronco, to Pope Francis because the name of the charity is the Pope Francis Center. All right, now, on May 27th, 2016, Obama was the first sitting president to visit Hiroshima in Japan, and God uses firsts for prophetic signs. A period of 42 months is mentioned 7 times in Bible prophecy as symbolism for the end times period of the Antichrist. And it is only symbolism. For those that are expecting something, but they don't know what they're expecting, but they're expecting something to tell the whole world, well, especially them, of course, and every other quote-unquote Christian, the precise beginning of the 42 months, well, you can give that up. You're wasting your time. It's only symbolism. There may be something symbolic that happens on the exact 42 months juncture. I wouldn't be surprised at all, of course. In fact, I would expect it. But it is still only symbolism. I don't know what you're expecting, the Antichrist to step on the Temple Mount or something to that effect, but it's not going to happen. Okay? It's just symbolism. And the purpose of this prediction that is from God in this video is to prove the controversial things that I'm saying in this video, including this. And including, of course, the identities of the Antichrist, speaking of which is a waste of time. The evangelical Antichrist guessing game. You can stop this now. That's the purpose of this prediction. Do you understand? Believe me, I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. And it is to prove what I have just said, that Pope Francis is the first of the 2 antichrists, and Barack Obama is the second of the 2 who speaks like a dragon, who became the president on his ability to deliver a speech, for example. But that's not even how we know. We know from watching God's signs. Now, how is it that the other watchers, quote unquote, don't know the identities of the Antichrists? I do not know. Well, I do know, actually. I do know the source of their error. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and their heretical doctrine, their heretical salvation doctrine, that tells them that it's not possible to know the identity of the Antichrist. Because of their salvation doctrine, that's heresy, and the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, which Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth and those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And it is this doctrine that prevents these people from realizing that God is overwhelmingly, in fact, I would say 90% of God's prophetic signs that they claim to be watching for identify the Antichrist. In fact, the building blocks, the foundation of God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel, are Antichrist building blocks, Antichrist identity building blocks. But regardless of that, the prophecy in even the Old Testament is abundantly clear that a pope is the Antichrist. This knowledge was known until about 50 years ago, when it was conveniently lost right before the end times in order to fool as many people as possible. But there wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation without this knowledge. And it's more than clear that the Pope is the Antichrist from prophecy. But that's another subject, and we'll leave it at that. But the reason why we'll leave it at that is because, I don't have to tell you anything more than that the prediction proves this. That's what the purpose of this prediction is. And to not appreciate this is to miss entirely the point of this video, this prediction that is from God and this channel, and you are wasting your time. If you want to continue to play the Antichrist guessing game, turn off this video now. You are wasting your time, my friend. You don't get it. Okay? The purpose of this video, or rather prediction, is not for you to go, oh, cool, neat. You were able to know this ahead of time. That's not the purpose of this prediction. The purpose of this prediction is to prove the matter. This is the purpose of prophecy. 1/3 of the Bible is prophecy for the sake of God proving it as being the inspired word of God, and this is prophecy, his prophetic signs that Jesus commanded us to watch for. For what reason? To go, oh, cool and neat about things? No, to inform us about things. And of course, he would inform us about the identities of the Antichrist, which he has been doing overwhelmingly and these days on a daily basis for years. Years and years. And if you are a watcher of signs and you didn't know that, well, okay, it's time to, start paying attention here and to relinquish your steadfast belief that what Paul is referring to in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is the Holy Spirit, because it isn't. Why would Paul speak regarding what is holding back the Antichrist as a he and a what? And why would he speak cryptically? And why would he tell the Thessalonians in the same chapter that they knew what he was talking about? And if they did, why didn't he just plainly say what he was talking about? The reason is because anyone who had been in possession of the letters would have been in great danger had he spoken plainly. Because he was referring to, with the he and the what being the capital, Rome, being moved to Constantinople by the he, the emperor, Constantine. Thus, paving the way, or rather clearing the way, for the rise of the bishops of Rome, for the rise in power of the bishops of Rome, in the vacuum of power left behind. Okay. So Paul was prophesying, he was identifying the Antichrist there. Furthermore, he says that the Antichrist sits in a seat. Well, what's the symbol of Rome? What's the symbol of the Pope? The seat. It's the seat of Peter, supposedly. Of course, Peter was never in Rome, and he referred to Rome as Babylon in his writings in the Bible. But anyway, that's a different subject. But okay, so Pope Francis is the Antichrist, but it was always the case that all popes throughout all of history have been lowercase a Antichrists. The office of papacy is blasphemy. And that's another reason why it is a shame. It is shameful that evangelicals don't these days identify Pope Francis as the Antichrist. Prophetic signs aside, prophecy and some wisdom tells us this. Of course, the Antichrist would be a pope. Of course. It's so obvious. I mean, when I became born again, this was immediately obvious to me. I mean, this whole system of Catholicism throughout the centuries, it's in our face. Maybe it's because it's so in our face, it's so obvious, this is why it's missed. But any Protestant should recognize this. Okay? So, and when the Antichrist sits in the seat of God, claiming to be God, that's the Pope. Popes claim to be the vicar of Christ, the representative of Christ on earth. Well, let's continue here. So we have Obama visiting Japan and Hiroshima. Exactly 42 months. It's stunning. Before Pope Francis was in Japan. And when he went, he visited Nagasaki, the other of the two cities. So you have the two Antichrists visiting the two nuclear bomb cities. That's quite something in itself, because it seems like if you have the eyes to see it, the two nuclear bombed cities were all along for the purpose of identifying the two Antichrists. And where have you ever heard this before? It's not about me, of course, but it's about how God's signs have been identifying the Antichrists for years. And this being an example here. Their visits exactly 42 months apart. Because this is the period of time for the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Now, what's also astounding here is that Pope Francis visited, while he was in Nagasaki, the Hidden Christians Monument. Because way back when the Portuguese were there in Nagasaki, they evangelized Japanese who were then persecuted through the centuries and were hiding to avoid persecution. They are called the hidden Christians. And there are these hidden Christians sites and a monument there that the Pope visited. Now, the Pope visited the monument and was in Japan 666 days exactly after UNESCO, as an Antichrist system, declared the hidden Christians sites to be World Heritage Sites officially. 666 days later, the Pope was in Japan and was at the monument. Can you believe that? Obviously, that clearly identifies the Antichrist, who will persecute true Christians in the end times, who will be going into hiding. Things come full circle at the end when Rome and the Vatican persecute true Christians just like they did at the beginning of the church age. And sorry to the Catholic, conservative Catholics, no, the problem is not the current leadership or the current Pope. The problem is Catholicism. The office of papacy is blasphemy. It was always meant to be this way. There's not ever been a quote-unquote good Pope, including Pope John Paul II. He was not a good man. I mean, he might have been an all right guy, but no, he wasn't really a believer. You know that, right? Oh, okay. Let's leave that subject aside. We get the idea here, though. Pope John Paul II, furthermore, was exactly what Bible prophecy describes as being a harlot, because the use of the metaphor of sexual immorality regarding the beast system is a metaphor for mixing the world's religions. And that's Mr. John Paul II. He is Mr. bringing the world's religions together. He is a harlot. He is the sexually immoral Pope. He wasn't, in any way, if you know the history of that man, he wasn't really a believer. This is what I understand anyway. Well, that's another subject, and let's get back to this one. Now, we've got this connection. We've got these two astounding connections here to when Pope Francis was in Japan. The reason why Pope Francis was in Japan is because there were two things that he was most concerned about, or rather, his big mission, if you will: environmentalism and climate change, etc., that big lie from Satan, and also nuclear weapons. And so that's exactly what the demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with, which is why they will raise Pope Francis from the dead and make him the world ambassador, because he was this guy that promoted these two things, the very things that the demons pretending to be aliens will be promoting. Now, the day that Francis was in Japan on November 27th is 2 years and 2 months exactly, which hints at the number 22, which in God's signs is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist, because the inverse of the mark of the Antichrist in the book of Ezekiel would have been a Tav mark, the last and 22nd letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And the mark of the Antichrist is described in the last and 22nd book out of 22 books in the Bible that have a total of 22 chapters. Also, the mark of the Antichrist changes a person's chromosomes, and a chromosome comes in pairs, and each chromosome has 2 arms, and so 2 and 2. Well, also, this 2 years and 2 months is 26 months, and 26 is the 4 times 4th composite number, which means non-prime number. And this is at 44, the 44th president, the second of the 2 antichrists, who will get his power from the first. This is also the equivalent of exactly 217% of a year, and that hints at the 17th day of the second month on which the flood judgment began. Well, anyway, this day, January 27th, 2022, was the date of the auction of the Wimbledon White 66 Ford Bronco auctioned for charity for the Pope Francis Center. Okay, so this is the date, January 27th, 2022. We have this connection now with these 2 antichrists here, which is an amazing connection. And then we add from that exactly 116 months to get the Day of Atonement on September 27th, 2031, the day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, who will be riding a white horse in his defeat of the Antichrists. And this date will be September 27th, which hints at Daniel 9:27, the last verse of the most central prophecy in the Bible that describes the period of the Antichrist. And by the way, that prophecy also describes Pope Francis, because it says that this Antichrist will be of the people who came and destroyed the city and the sanctuary after Jesus was put to death. All that's part of that prophecy. Well, the people that came to destroy the city and the sanctuary after Jesus' death were the Romans. And the Antichrist is of the Romans, and that's a pope. It's very clear. By the way, the preceding chapter says in chapter 8 that the Antichrist will come from the north and the west. Exactly northwest of Jerusalem is Rome. Okay, now the reason for 116 months is that 116 is the 85th composite number. Well, Pope Francis was elected the Pope exactly 85 years after the St. Francis Dam collapsed in Los Angeles, as in Fallen Angels. Also, 85 in God's signs hints at the 5th through 8th king's prophecy in Revelation chapter 17, which identifies Pope Francis. Also, the 116th composite number is 153, which is 9 times 17, and Obama was president from 09 until 17. Also, this is, of course, the prophetic number in the last chapter of the book of John, in Jesus' last miracle, which symbolizes the end of the age of fishing for men. 153 fish caught in the net. Okay, so anyway, also, if you didn't catch this, this confirms the day of the Lord, the second coming. For those that believe the misinterpretation of the most quoted verse from the Bible, by far, no one knows the day or hour, that interpretation is based on an incorrect translation, and it's a misinterpretation. The word for know there is different than the word for know just 3 verses prior to it, which has a different meaning, which is the meaning that you think you have with the no one knows the day. The knows in that verse means no one has seen. No one has seen. It doesn't mean no one has known, or no one does know. That's not what it means. Furthermore, we have in the following verses a description of who is to know, because it's in brackets, parentheses. Noah and his family, yes, they did know. They did know the precise day and hour when the judgment came. As did Lot, as did God's other servants. Furthermore, Amos 3:8, God does nothing without his servants first knowing. Of course, those who are watching, as Jesus commanded, will know. That's why it says, for example, in Revelation 3:3, watch therefore, because if you do not watch, I will come at an hour you do not expect. Therefore, if you are watching, you will know the hour. That's obvious. That's clear. So in other words, there's countless passages that contradict this no one knows the day interpretation. But people that believe this interpretation ignore these other passages. Why? Because they want to believe that no one knows the day. Why? Because it gives them an excuse to not watch. Of course, you don't need to watch when there's nothing to be watching for. And for those that, we're watching for the season, I mean, come on. That's the easy way out. I don't want to be too negative here, but I mean, we've been in the season for like over 100 years, right? World War I was the birth pains, and nation will rise against nation and kingdom, and there'll be rumors of wars. The beginning of the reassembly, restoration of Israel. Okay, so no. Where do you get this in the Bible? Where do you even cite, where's your citation for we are to know the season but not the day or the hour? Where do you get that? Where does it say, oh, we can know the season? Where does it say that? No, this is silly. The bridesmaids were sleeping because they weren't watching. Half of them still made the rapture anyway. But none of them were watching. And Jesus commanded to be watching after this parable. So who is watching? Well, that would be the bride. The bride is eagerly watching for the bridegroom and will know exactly when he's coming. And it won't be like when he's instantly right in front of her face. She can see him coming. She's watching. Okay? And she knows exactly when he's going to arrive because she's watching. Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully this doctrine that's from Satan, the doctrine of imminence, has just been disproven. But if you do not believe that it has been from what I've just said, well, know this. The reason for this prediction that is from God is to prove what I have just said. There is no debate. Zero. It's not up for discussion at all when this prediction comes to pass. And that is the purpose of this prediction that is from God, and I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction. The doctrine of imminence is false. The interpretation of no one knows the day or hour is false. All right? And the case closed when the prediction comes to pass. But we have more amazing stuff here. So this date that, this is a typo here. Should be May 27th, all right, 2015. No, it's not a typo. I'm sorry. This was the last day that Pope Francis was in America on his trip to America. But this in itself was hinting at Daniel 9:27. It, in other words, identified Pope Francis as the Antichrist for anyone who was watching at the time. Of course it did. Why in the world would he leave the last day from Philadelphia, no less, one of the churches from the book of Revelation, on the date 927, if it weren't for the purpose of identifying him as the Antichrist, who is the descendant of the Romans in Daniel 9:27. That's why, anyway, he left on the date 927, the last day of his big trip to America in 2015. And that day is exactly 4 times 4 years before the Day of Atonement, which hints at the 44th president, the American Antichrist, which is why this connects from the date that the Pope was in America. The last time that Francis was in America. So, and he was in Philadelphia, okay? Now, the first popemobile was in America, the Wimbledon white Ford Bronco. And that's the subject of this video here. Now, this date that the Pope was last in America, Pope Francis the Antichrist, on the date 927, because of Daniel 927, was exactly 25 times 2 months. And in Daniel 927, we have a period of 2,520 days, which is what this is symbolizing. So that's another confirmation that this date 927 hints at Daniel 927, because we have this connection right here that also hints at Daniel 927 from the Daniel 927 date. 25 times 2 months, exactly, to the date that Pope Francis was in Nagasaki visiting the hidden Christians in Japan, the hidden Christian monument. On November 27, 2019, he was in Japan, and that day is exactly 2 years and 2 months, which I already talked about up here. Same connections now. Okay, same as before. 2 years, 2 months, 22 equals the mark of the Antichrist. 4 times 4th composite number of months, 217% of a year, gets us to the date, the auction of the white Wimbledon 66 Ford Bronco for the Pope Francis Center charity. Okay, and that again is 116 months to the day of the atonement. Okay, but how do we connect it to the Super Bowl? Well, let's do that now. So, May 27, 2016, when Obama was in Hiroshima. Wait, you know what? The day that Francis was last in America was exactly 4 plus 4 months before Obama was in Hiroshima, the 44th president, the first sitting president. That's amazing. Yeah, so there you go. Pope Francis, the first of the two in America, And then 4 plus 4 months exactly to the 44th president of America in Hiroshima. And Hiroshima, by the way, also hints at Obama. The name is a rhyme with Obama. Hiroshima, Obama. Okay? And so that's amazing. Now, him at the Hiroshima monument is exactly 68 months, which identifies Barack Obama, because the name Barack Obama is equal to 68 numerically in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. But this 68 months is also exactly 5 years and 8 months, which is the 5th through 8th king's prophecy in Revelation chapter 17, which again identifies actually Pope Francis and Barack Obama. A secondary fulfillment of that prophecy is Obama. And it is only both are only metaphors, a symbolism. But the second one, of course, is even more symbolic because it's not really the primary purpose of that prophecy. But it does also actually identify Obama, and here's how. The first of the 7 kings was inaugurated in 77, Carter, and Obama is the 8th of that lineage. Trump was inaugurated when he was in the year ending in 7, when he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, and he's the 7th of that series of kings beginning in the year 77 with Jimmy Carter. But that's another subject. Okay, so anyway, that gets us again to the date of the auction. The 68 months or 5 years and 8 months gets us to the date of the auction from when Obama was in Hiroshima. And this is a big deal because him being in Hiroshima is like an Antichrist sign because it's like the world stage, you know? And he'll be leading the UN in the end times as the Antichrist, and it'll be about nuclear weapons, part of it. So January 27th, 2022, the auction, the Wimbledon White 66 Ford Bronco, which has a 4x4 system, as in the 44th President Antichrist system, for charity for the Pope Francis Center. Okay, and that date of the auction is 404% of the year, which is, of course, the 44th president again, to the Super Bowl, in which it is predicted that the MVP will be player number 4+4. Yep, amazing. It's also on the date 2-8, which could hint at 8 divided by 2 and 4 and 4. But also, this 404% of a year is also 4 years and 13 days. And again, the Bronco has 310 horsepower and 400 feet per pound of torque, which hints at Isaiah 31:4. Also, the area code of St. Louis, where Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom, the 40th governor, I should say, returning to the 31st state, will crash in St. Louis in the area code 314. And they will be predicted to be running for president at that time in August of 2028, and their deaths will clear the way for Barack Obama to become the president again, through Michelle Obama replacing Gavin Newsom as the candidate for president for the Democrat Party. It remains to be seen whether Obama will be running with her as the vice president or whether someone else does and then that person steps down and Barack Obama will then replace that person and then replace Michelle. I don't think it's the latter, actually. I should stop saying that. Yeah, Barack Obama is going to run with Michelle as her vice president. I think it's pretty clear. All right, and so that's how we connect to the Super Bowl, okay? So we have this connection here. Now, if you think that I created this in my own mind, and then the Broncos and their subsequent win after this prediction here is a coincidence, I don't know what to tell you. This is extremely clear. It's very simple and straightforward, and obviously no one could have concocted all of this in their own imagination, right? I mean, the first popemobile, it's again, the Super Bowl is in San Francisco, which hints at Pope Francis. The first popemobile was a Ford Bronco, and the Broncos are predicted to win. And we have this Pope Francis Center charity auction of a Ford Bronco. But it's not only that, it's a classic Ford Bronco, which hints back to the first popemobile, which is a metaphor for the Antichrist riding the white horse in Bible prophecy. which is why all of this connects back to the date that Pope Francis was in America. Because again, I said that this date connects with 4 + 4 months to Obama, the 44th president in Hiroshima. And again, the first popemobile was in America, the white Bronco. And we have the Pope Antichrist last time he was in America on this date, exactly this number of months, 4 + 4 to the 44th president. You get the idea here. And then with 68 months, Barack Obama, again, connection. And then 404%, again, Obama connection. It's clear, right? And again, the Super Bowl predicted MVP is player number 4 + 4. Okay, so I hope if you were an agnostic atheist, you aren't any longer. That's the purpose of this video, to help you. But it's also, again, to prove all of the other controversial things that I've said in this video. And with that, God bless. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.